Hi guys, it's Caitlin, and today I am here to talk to you about episode 12 of Shadowhunters entitled Malec. And I just want to start this off by saying that I think there might be a misconception, according to some of the comments I've been getting, some of the private messages I've been getting, that I don't know anything about the Shadowhunter Chronicles. I just want to clear up the fact that I have read all of these books behind me. The only book that I haven't read is Lady Midnight, which I'm in the process of reading, and the Bane Chronicles, which I have read several of the novellas from. I also have not read Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy novellas, but I probably will when they come out in a book format. I have read all the books. I'm up to date. I know who people are. I know their bloodlines. I know their histories. I'm not going into this completely blind, not understanding. When I talk about not understanding something in the episode, I mean I don't understand it in the episode because the world in the episode is separate from the world in the book, so it's not making sense to me in that sense. As is the normal way I do these videos, I am going to give you a brief spoiler-free review of the episode, then a vague synopsis, and then I'm going to go through my thoughts in the order in which they occurred while I watched the episode. I loved this episode. I thought it was fantastic. There were a few elements that I wasn't a huge fan of, but overall I thought it was wonderful. The characters were excellent, the dialogue was good, the emotions were so powerful in this. I found myself smiling and sitting there super excited for certain scenes, and I got emotional during some of them, and I loved it. And at the end of this all, I would give this episode, in comparison to all of the other ones, an A or maybe even an A+. Now going into the general synopsis. This episode kind of begins as they're investigating, trying to figure out who the warlock is who gave the potion to Clary's mother to put her into this floating coma thing. And they discover that it is probably Ragnar Fell, so Magnus takes them to go see Ragnar Fell, and Ragnar Fell reveals that he is the one who made this potion for Clary's mother at Clary's mother's request. He's attacked by a demon and he's killed. And this leads them to believe that there is a mole in the Institute who betrayed their plans to Valentine. Isabel throws Alec a bachelor party, and Jace and Alec finally make up, and then we have the wedding between Alec and Lydia. And after all of this Malec drama has gone on throughout the episode, we finally get this moment where Magnus shows up and Alec and Lydia don't get married. She tells him to go and be with the one he loves, and so he goes and he kisses Magnus, and everybody finally knows the truth about who he is, and he's finally being himself. Lydia, now that she is not going to be marrying Alec, has no reason to stay at the Institute. She's going to return to Idris, and to do so she is getting the Mortal Cup to take it back to the Clave. While she is doing so, she is attacked and the Mortal Cup is taken from her. It's revealed at the end of the episode that Hodge has it, and he is going to betray Jocelyn and the Mortal Cup to Valentine in exchange for Valentine destroying the rune that is forcing Hodge to stay in the Institute. Now we're going to go through the episode step by step. So at the very beginning, I was a little bit thrown off because it kind of starts off where they're talking about these are all of the warlocks who are more powerful than Magnus Bane. There's 20 of them. What? How do you figure out who's more powerful and why is Magnus not powerful? I'm really confused by this because at least in the books, and obviously I'm aware that this isn't going by the books, Magnus is one of the most powerful warlocks there are. Then we get a really nice Clary and Alec heart-to-heart, and I really love when we get those moments with Clary and Alec where they're just talking, even when they're arguing, because they just have so much chemistry, and I just feel like their scenes really come alive on the screen. After this heart-to-heart, Alec leaves and he has to go see Magnus because he says Magnus has contacted him with some possible information. When Alec gets there though, Magnus kind of just asked him there for drinks, and they get in an argument, and Magnus goes, "Tell me you're in love and I'll stop." And then Alec basically says, "You need to stop this, you're confusing me." I feel like this scene was one of the slightly more disappointing ones for me because I did watch it and I did see where it was trying to go and I did enjoy the scene, but to me it just kind of felt wrong. It felt like Magnus was bullying Alec. I at least should have understood where Alec was coming from in this insecurity and the fact that it's not an accepted part of his culture. He would not be accepted by his parents, by his people, by anybody if he came out as gay. And I feel like Magnus did have a point. Like, you can't just live your life and do things because you're afraid of what other people will think. But I don't think he went about it in a kind way. And I feel like he should have been more compassionate about it, because I do know for a fact that in the books, Magnus would have been far more understanding and far more compassionate. And he was. He was very, very kind to Alec throughout the whole thing, so that did kind of bother me. Then we get this awesome moment where Clary calls Simon and invites him to the wedding as her date, and he's just so excited about it, and I love that part. And then Hodge, Jace, Clary, and Magnus have a meeting in the Institute about Ragnar Fell, and they decide that they're going to go on a mission to go to Ragnar Fell's house, where he's been hiding out ever since Valentine started targeting the warlocks, and they are going to talk to him and see if he's the one who made the potion that put Jocelyn into this floating coma bubble thing. Then at the end of this meeting, Alec comes in, and there's a lot of Malec animosity, and it really felt horrible. Like, it was so sad. And then Lydia was so happy to see Magnus, and then you just get the sense that she was really upset by it, and I felt really bad for her. Then we have a Clary and Jace argument, and it was kind of one of the best acted scenes for me, and it was one of the best written scenes for me, because Clary's basically just going after Jace, going after Jace, going after Jace, and finally he's like, I don't want to talk about this right now. Like, I just need you to get away from me, because I feel really weird right now. I feel like a lot of people might criticize it. I don't really know. I haven't seen any reviews. I haven't heard other people's opinions on it, but to me, I felt like that was like one of the best written lines of dialogue so far. It wasn't witty. It wasn't a deep emotional think. It was just very succinct and very accurate, and I really appreciated kind of the subtleness of it, because I felt like I just feel really weird right now is a very accurate representation of how poor Jace felt, and I felt like that was a really great line, and he delivered it really well in that. And then they go on their mission to find Ragnar Fell, and then this ward pops up that's protecting Ragnar Fell's home from anybody else, and they go through the ward, and when Clary gets through, there's nobody else there. So she's freaking out, and she runs through the house, and finally she finds Ragnar Fell hiding in a painting, and she yanks him out. He asks her what she's willing to do to get the information and to save her mother, and as usual, she says, I'd do anything. And I'm starting to kind of worry about this, because like, I know that Clary would do anything to save her mother, but literally she tells everybody, I will do anything you want if you give me my mother back. Like, you don't want to be saying that to people. Like, what if they want something bad? Don't be telling people that, even here. Just don't. It's a bad idea. Bad juju. The whole time that he's sitting there talking to her, he keeps turning to these empty chairs and like yelling at him, let me do this my own way. Get off my case. And then as soon as she says she'll do anything, he just like snaps his fingers, and Jace and Magnus appear tied to the chairs. I thought he was just crazy and talking to himself. And that's when he reveals that he needs the Book of the White, but someone else has taken it and he doesn't know where it is. But he has a hint hidden in his house somewhere, and he needs to go find it. And he's attacked by a demon, and he's killed. And then Clary and Jace are arguing about how Jace is like, it's not worth it, we need to go back to the Institute. And Clary's like, no, we need to find the information he was talking about. And Magnus is lying on the floor with Ragnar Fell, just like heartbroken, because this is one of his oldest friends. And finally, he just creates a portal, and he's like, will you guys just go? Leave me alone to take care of my friend. And that moment was just really sad to me, because it's kind of showing how they're starting to prioritize missions before individuals, and how they're not really taking into account the emotions and the actual value of other creatures' lives. But another thing that struck me in that scene is that this occurred very early. When Ragnar Fell is killed, it's in City of Glass. He's killed in Idris, so we're supposedly only covering the first two books, but we are definitely still getting those elements of the other books in the series kind of tossed in, thrown in, tangled into the plot so far. But I do appreciate it, because I feel like drawing in these elements from the other books that we aren't expecting does keep even the book readers on their toes, even more than it does just the fact that this is a different universe. When they get back, they reveal to everybody that the demon got through, which means that someone must have betrayed them to Valentine, and they think it's Lydia. And the first thing I would go was, Hodge was there. Why don't you think it's Hodge? I don't feel like there's been enough relationship building between them and Hodge, but I think that's the way they're playing it, because they're not really playing Hodge up. He's rarely there, and he's never really doing anything, so I think that's how they're kind of getting away with using Lydia as a scapegoat. And so they tell Clary to go talk to her, because Lydia might let down her guard with Clary. As soon as Clary goes in there, the first thing she does is essentially accuse Lydia of this. And she starts basically being like, well, you were there. How am I supposed to trust you? Good Lord, Clary, like, what are you doing? You don't just go and ask the bad guy in disguise if they're the bad guy. Hi, liar. Are you a liar? I think you lied. Did you lie? Like, no, that doesn't work, you stupid, stupid, stupid girl. Then Isabel goes to the Hotel du Mort where Simon is trying on all these like coats and jackets because he's so excited to be Clary's date to the wedding. And she goes to him for advice about how to throw a bachelor party. And he basically tells her strippers. And she's like, what? It's just like, I guess I don't know how Shadowhunter bachelor parties differ from human bachelor parties, but like, I thought that strippers were kind of universally known to be associated with bachelor parties, but apparently not. So then he kind of just tones it down and he's like, just, you know, friends. Have his friends there. And lots of booze. I can't argue with that. They start having this conversation like, so what a bachelor party is really about is just reinforcing relationships and telling each other and telling your friends that you're still going to be friends and you're still going to be there for each other even though your lives have changed and you're married. And I'm just like, is that what it's for? Like, I just thought it was an excuse to go out, have fun, get drunk, and then you're married. Then we jump to Magnus's house. Ragnar Fell's ghost starts showing up. And then we get Alec's bachelor party, and I felt so bad for him because it was pretty awful. Izzy just drags him downstairs with a blindfold on, and there's like this music pounding, and she's like, you have to wait 10 seconds before you take it off, and then she leaves. And he waits 10 seconds, and he takes it off, and he's in an empty room that's super lame by himself. And then all of a sudden, the music's not really pounding anymore, and I'm like, what was that music? I don't understand. And then Jace comes down and he's like, Izzy says you wanted to talk to me. And Alec's like, nope. And he's like, well, I have to talk to you. And they finally make up and they just have this talk about how they've affected each other and how much they care about each other and how their friendship is so strong and they just want to make up and be good again. And I loved that scene so much. I just loved it. It was really emotional. Like, that scene, I was literally like smiling and like close to tears a couple times, and I just loved it. I was so drawn in. Their dialogue was so great. Their chemistry was so great. That scene had so much emotion packed into it, and I just loved every second of it. That was one of my two favorite scenes in the episode, and I honestly can't choose between them because like the other scene was like one that I wanted to happen. I was really excited when it happened, but this one just kind of came out of nowhere for me, and I loved it so much. The feels. And then we jump back to Magnus, and then we get a bunch of references to like the Chronicles of Magnus Bane being drawn in. Like, he starts playing that one instrument that he tried to play in Peru when he was like in love with that one guy, and then Ragnar Fell's ghost starts making comments about how he could have gotten that guy back if he'd really tried. His playing it is awful, and he's already died once. Why does he have to torture him now that he's dead? One of the things they're not drawing in is the essence of Ragnar Fell. That's not how his personality was. He had more of a serious, dour personality as far as I knew, but he seemed very, very Magnus-like. He was upbeat, he was chipper, he was kind of sarcastic, kind of liked it better in the show. And finally, we get the wedding scene, and it was the one I was waiting for the entire time, and the whole thing was epic and amazing and beautiful, and I loved every second of it except for Clary. Clary was acting like such a fucking weirdo the entire wedding, and I'm just like, why are you doing this? Stop. 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 But she just sits there or walks around and spends all his time just like staring like a creep at Jace, and he just keeps looking at her and she's staring at him like, you need to stop. And he just looks so uncomfortable every time, and I'm like, he's your brother, or so you think right now. You need to stop. And then Lydia comes down the aisle, and she looks so pretty. Like, she's gorgeous. Like, I like that they didn't throw out the whole Shadowhunters wear gold for weddings thing. We jump back, and I'm like sitting there like, oh, she's so pretty. And then we jump back to Clary, and I'm like, stop being a creep. Stop it. Like, every single time we got a shot of Clary, I'm like, ah, like, stop. And then right in the middle of it, like, they have this whole thing where she puts like a gold cuff on his wrist and he puts his necklace around her neck, and then she takes her stele and she like stabs it into a block of ice, I guess, and it like fills it up with like this misty white powder. And then Magnus shows up. And then, you know, Alec is like, I can't breathe, my heart's pounding. Lydia's like, it's okay, it's fine. And she basically tells Alec, you know, I know you can't do this, just go. And I was just like, she is so kind. Like, I don't know, I think that a lot of people, myself included, kind of looked at her like, she's a good person, but we don't necessarily like her, even though we do like her because of the situation with Malec. But then that moment comes, and I was just like, she is so kind. Like, she is so wonderful. Like, I love her character. I really do hope that we get more of her in the future because I just love Lydia so much. Like, that moment for me was really, really wonderful. Like, that made me so happy, and I felt so sad for her too, but it was wonderful. And then, of course, you know, Alec's parents are awful. Like, and then they go, and they just, like, talk for a second, and then they have their final kiss. I was like, oh my God. I've been waiting for this all my life. I just can't. And then afterwards, when the wedding is kind of all broken up and everybody's leaving, Simon comes over and he's all excited. He's like, that's so cool. It was like the scene in this movie. And he starts like reenacting it. And he's like, and now you guys are like on the bus. And you're like, what do we do now? And I'm just like, what are you doing? And I'm like dying. Like, what is happening? And then Alec looks at him and he's like, who invited the vampire? And Simon's like, really? And then we get another moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, Clary, stop. Why? And then we get the scene where Magnus is like, I didn't come back solely for Alec. I came back because I found this leather thing and it's the only thing. So he tracks it, and I don't know why he wouldn't have just tracked it on his own, why he like waited to be with them, but okay. And he tracks it and he discovers that Camille has the book and she's locked in the basement of the Hotel du Mort because Raphael is punishing her. Then we have this scene where Lydia kind of looks angry and she's changed into her clothes and she opens this safe thing with a rune and she reaches in to grab the mortal cup, and the expression on her face leads you to think maybe she has been working with Valentine. But then someone comes into the room behind her and attacks her and she's knocked unconscious and she's reaching for the cup with like her last strength or whatever as her vision goes black, and whoever attacked her grabs it. I'm like, Hodge did it. Then we jump to the scene with the JC box, and I didn't really care about that scene, honestly. Then we have a scene where Maris and Roger confront Alec and Magnus, and Maris is the one who freaks out and then goes storming off. And it struck me as strange, like, why is Roger the reasonable one in this situation? Like, that is the opposite of how it goes. And then it's revealed that Hodge stole the mortal cup because he goes into a room where Jocelyn's floating in her bubble, sends Luke away, says he'll watch over her, and then he twists a ring around. Valentine shows up in hologram form, and he's like, I'll give you the cup if you get rid of this rune. And the episode ends, and the trailer looks fantastic for next week. And I'm so stoked, guys. The best one yet. Finally, a good episode that I can, without a doubt, say was the best episode so far. This is giving me great hope for the future, and I am stoked. Go ahead and comment down below. Let me know what you thought of the episode. If you agreed with me on things, if you disagreed with me on things, hit like if you liked the video, hit subscribe if you really liked it, and I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks so much. Bye.